Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL Kickoff. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Mike McCarthy is the producer behind the boards. It's Week 14 in the NFL, and there's no shortage of storylines and key matchups to follow, and that's why we're here to break it down just for you. Here's a look at what we have on tap for this week's episode. We'll take a look at the 27 semifinalists for the 2018 Pro Football Hall of Fame class that were announced with our football game plan analyst, Gene Clemens. We will also take a look inside the film room and break down why some things are and why they are the way they are in our film session with the Czar segment. And as always, we'll take you around the NFL as we break down all of the games on the Week 14 schedule. But first, let's get things kicked off with some of our key storylines around the NFL as we go into our 4-minute offense. The New York Giants did something they hadn't done in over 40 years, and that's fire a coach during the season. General Manager Jerry Reese and head coach Ben McAdoo are out, and defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo takes over as the interim head coach for the season. It's funny how things can quickly change in a year in the NFL. Last season, McAdoo was a toast of the town as he led the Giants to an 11-5 record, and now in the midst of a 2-10 season, he's out of a job completely. One guy who was out of a job just a week ago, Eli Manning, is now inserted back into the starting lineup. Geno Smith played in place of Manning last week, and with the change in head coach, the organization announced that number 10 will go back into the lineup as a starter against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, with that Giants move, you can expect there to be a lot of suitors for one of the more premier jobs in the NFL. Here are some names to keep an eye on. Josh McDaniels, who is the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, is, in my opinion, ready for another head coaching opportunity. He's young and creative enough to inject some life into this Giants offense. I also like Jets defensive coordinator Casey Rodgers. Rodgers has that Jets defense playing lights out and has kept that side of the ball consistent in the midst of playing a lot of youth on the back end while also dealing with a rash of injuries on that side of the ball as well. One sleeper candidate that I think is a phenomenal coach is Giants special teams coach Tom Quinn. He is in charge of one of the more consistent units on this Giants football team and is a straight shooter type of a guy that has the respect of every Giants player on that team. Now, there are going to be a bevy of candidates, but those are some of the initial names that I would like to see get a serious look. It's around that time of the season where many start to ask if some of the young stars have hit the vaunted rookie wall. Guys like Chiefs running back Kareem Hunt, Bears rookie sensation Tariq Cohen, Browns rookie Myles Garrett, just to name a few, have cooled off a bit since getting off to a great start. To me, it's not so much of a rookie wall per se, more so than the opponents are adjusting their game plans to take those options away. Because juxtaposed to those aforementioned rookies, you still have guys like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, Jamal Adams still making continued impacts on their teams. So don't look at it as a rookie wall or hitting a rookie wall, because it's more due to the fact that teams have begun to change how they attack those said players. It's Week 14 and we're starting to see the playoff picture in the NFL get a little bit clearer. Teams that are still battling for, let's say, the 5th and 6th spots in the playoffs have a chance to strengthen their chances this week. Teams like Atlanta, the Los Angeles Chargers, Baltimore Ravens can make things very interesting in the playoff picture. Meanwhile, the Rams and Eagles playing what could shake up the top 3 spots in the NFC race, as both teams, along with the Minnesota Vikings, are jockeying for those top 2 seeds, which would mean a first-round bye in the playoffs.
Man, it's that old thing, perseverance, consistency, hard work. My goal is to put the same work into, my businesses, my family that I put into football, and I've been running with that mantra since I got married back in '97, that if I'm going to have a successful marriage, I got to, the same hard work and same consistency and discipline I had on the football field, I got to put in my marriage and with my kids and with my businesses and all that. So it teaches you a lot, man, how to deal with your fellow man and not look at his color, but look at, what he can do for the overall good of what you're trying to accomplish, So, sports to me in general is just an incredible deal when you talk about football specifically, because of the closeness of guys. I just believe it's an amazing sport.
Like I said before, it's Week 14 in the NFL, and we have a doozy on Thursday night as the New Orleans Saints travel to the Atlanta Falcons in a pivotal NFC battle that has a lot of playoff implications. We're going to take a look at some X factors in this ball game, and I think the biggest one for the New Orleans Saints is their secondary versus that receiving core of the Atlanta Falcons. They're facing Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, who's proven to be a strong and dependable number 2 option in the passing game, and the Saints maybe without Marshawn Lattimore, or if he's going to be back, we don't know how healthy he is, and that's not what you want to hear facing a guy like Julio Jones or even Mohamed Sanu. So whether or not they play Lattimore, the Saints secondary will have to step up and get big plays on the back end in order to help this defense win. And for the Falcons, I look at linebacker Deion Jones and how well they can do at the second level in stopping the running game. The Saints may try to lean on that defensive front 7 of the Falcons and run their way to victory. So I think it's up to the linebacking core to handle that downward pressure, beat those guys to the spot, and make sure they keep the Saints in 2nd and long and 3rd and long situations. I like New Orleans in this ball game. Their two-headed monster in the backfield, I think, causes a lot of problems for a defense because they can essentially keep both guys on the field at the same time and still be in good running situations and also passing situations. So I think this game, because both teams kind of mirror each other, they do have great running backs on both sides, but I think the Saints are more committed to running the football and are a little bit better at it than the Falcons, and I think that's what we'll see in this game en route to a victory for the Saints.
I love football. I cannot get enough of football. I watch it on every level.
The emotional release. You know, whether it's an exciting play that gets you all jacked up and juiced, or whether it's the fact that you're able to pour everything you have. Whatever frustration you had that week, you can put into that first kickoff coverage, that first block that you have, whatever it might be.
And I couldn't think of anything better to do to fill that void that you have as a football player than to get into coaching.
You get a chance to release a lot of emotion that you otherwise have no place to release. There's nothing else like that.
Again, the relationships you build and the people you're around and watching the guys compete, not just on the football field, but in life after they get done playing. It's just an amazing game.
Welcome back to the NFL Kickoff. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. It's one of the bucket list items for any football fan, and to be honest, the final destination that all football players hope to end up at, the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Recently, they released their list of 27 semifinalists for the 2018 class, and we're going to bring in our football game plan analyst, Gene Clemens, now. And Gene, what are some of your initial reactions?
Well, I'm not surprised by the list. There's no glaring omissions for me from the list. Really, it just seems like, why do they need a list this big? Like, why do you need 27 semifinalists? Like, is it really this hard? Like, that's my initial reaction, and it's my reaction every year when I see the Hall of Fame semifinal list. It's like, why don't we just get right down to a finalist list, and then you tell me who's going to be in it? Because I'm looking on this list of people right now, and you can already eliminate guys just based off the fact that there's too many at a position. And that's the way that the Hall of Fame has always seemed to work. But I look at a guy like John Lynch, and while I'm a Buccaneers fan, do I think John Lynch needs to be on any Hall of Fame list? No. I mean, he's not a Hall of Famer. When I say John Lynch out loud, I don't immediately think Hall of Famer. I think really good player. And I think that is the problem a lot of times with the Hall of Fame is they've turned the Hall of really good into the Hall of Fame. And to me, that's been a big no-no on their part. There's been a big undoing on their part. And maybe a reason why the Hall of Fame seems to be saturated with a lot of people who we wouldn't necessarily consider as stars or as people who need to have that level of fame. All
right, outside of John Lynch, in your opinion, who do you feel as though is a reach being named a semifinalist?
And I'll probably get a lot of there's a couple bucks on here that I'm like, man, is he really a Hall of Famer, or is he just really good at what he did? Rondé Barber, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. Alan Faneca, is he really one of the best guards ever, or was he just on a good team? You know, Kevin Maguire was a good center guard. Was he a transformative center guard? Was he the best center or guard of his era? No. On the opposite end, a very interesting guy for me is Tony Baselli, who I thought was the best offensive tackle of his time, that was cut short by the fact that he had injury that he couldn't come back from. His is kind of the offensive lineman's version of Gale Sayers. And so it'll be very interesting to see how Tony Boselli gets viewed in that room. I actually think that he is a Hall of Fame caliber talent, but I also think that part of being the best is being the best over a long period of time. And unfortunately, sometimes that comes down to being able to stay healthy, and he wasn't able to do that.
Now, you know they have to narrow this list down to between 5 or 7 guys, so give me your 7 players if you had a vote.
Okay, so if I'm putting 7 in right now, I'm putting both wide receivers in, Randy Moss and Terrell Owens. I know that they don't like to put 2 wide receivers in, but I just don't understand how you can continue to keep Terrell Owens out when you look at his name so close to the top of every receiving list. Terrell Owens, Randy Moss to me is a no-brainer. I don't care about the fact that he had some off-the-field issues. Ray Lewis is a no-brainer. So that's 3. Jimmy Johnson to me is a no-brainer as a coach. When you win in Dallas, when you make Miami relevant after it hadn't been relevant for years, and as a contributor to the game, I think that he gets a nod as well. So that's 4 for me. Brian Dawkins is a guy that I think will be a lot of people's consideration, but for me, if I was going to put a safety in, I put Steve Atwater in before I put Brian Dawkins in on the first ballot. So I think I would go Atwater. Oh God, it's so hard. Probably Steve Hutchinson. He was the best guard for a long period of time in the NFL, and you have to have a lot of respect for a guy who was the best for a long period of time. Oh gosh, why am I even looking? Brian Urlacher. Brian Urlacher is he's the Derrick Brooks for the Bears. If Derrick Brooks is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I believe he was, I think Brian Urlacher is of that same caliber, maybe not quite to the Derrick Brooks level, but not very far off. And he did that from the middle linebacker position instead of the weak side linebacker position. I would go with Brian Urlacher as my 7th guy.
Gene, tell people where they can find you on Twitter and what you got going on.
You can find me by my name on Twitter at Gene Clemens, on Instagram at Gene Clemens, and everywhere else at Gene Clemens. And check me out. I'm usually over there fighting the good fight, trying to weed through people who seem to have a voice with no substance.
2 things you always hear from coaches about stopping the run. It's about attitude and want to, both of which are very true. You have to want to stop the run, which requires the right kind of attitude, or don't give a you-know-what type of a mindset to get it done. But honestly, it's about interior penetration. Now, here are 2 examples from this past weekend. First, we'll take a look at the Jets' defensive line against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, just to backtrack a bit, both examples will show defensive tackles using tilted techniques. And I'm a big fan of having a tilted nose because it gives a defensive lineman a great chance to beat the reach block by the center. If you can do that, you'll be super disruptive, especially against the run. So number 98 is Mike Pennell, and he does an excellent job in 1, getting off the ball, 2, quickly attacking the inside shoulder of the center, and 3, setting up shop in the A-gap, all of which happens so quick that center Mitch Morse doesn't have a chance to recover, and the result is a TFL for Gang Green. Next example, we go out to Chicago, and the 49ers defensive tackle Earl Mitchell does a masterful job as a tilted nose attacking the upfield shoulder of center Cody Whitehair, which forces Jordan Howard to belly back a bit and not stay on track. Mitchell then goes the extra mile by helping string out the outside zone or stretch play. That's the type of attitude that you want to see. That's the type of want to that you expect to see from guys up front versus the run. But you see how in both instances, quick interior pressure derailed both rushing attempts, and that, my friend, is how you stop the run. The New York Giants week has gotten off to a busy start, to say the least. This week, they're back home playing host to a division rival, the Dallas Cowboys. So let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams in this matchup as we preview this game that has a ton of intrigue. Looking at the Dallas Cowboys in this ball game, I think they have to own the quick game. The short to intermediate passing game, to me, works well within their offense. I love the way Dak Prescott can get the football out of his hands quickly to Cole Beasley, to Dez Bryant, to Jason Witten. Get that football out quickly and let those playmakers take advantage of their athleticism. Second, it's about putting the confidence of the New York Giants in the Cobra clutch. You have to kill the confidence of a team that's going to try to come out and make this the game of the year based off what happened this past week. So you have to kill that confidence with early successful drives on offense and quick early stops on defense. And don't hesitate to send extra defensively. Eli Manning is not the most mobile of quarterbacks. I think the Cowboys can find a way to frustrate him in the pocket by getting pressure back there quickly, and you can't hesitate to send extra because you don't have to worry about him stepping up or finding someone deep down the field. That, to me, is a game plan for success on the defensive side of the ball. And for the Giants in this ball game, you want to keep Eli Manning on the move. Move that pocket left to right. Don't give him a straight drop back because, again, the Dallas Cowboys can send extra, and we know Eli doesn't do a great job in getting off the spot himself or beating that rush. They also have to beat Dallas on the inside. On offense, it's about that guard-center-guard combination, dominating that defensive front, that defensive interior of Dallas. I think they can have some success running downhill. And on defense, you look at Snacks Harrison and company doing a great job in winning up front against that interior offensive line of Dallas, being able to stop the run. So if they can beat Dallas on the inside, I think they have a great chance of winning this ball game. And it's always about tying up loose ends. No mental mistakes, because those can become physical mistakes. You're talking about penalties, turnovers. Those things can't happen. Busted assignments. If they can play a clean game, the Giants have enough talent to where they can knock off the Cowboys. The biggest X factor in this game, in my opinion, is Cole Beasley of the Dallas Cowboys. I love the way he plays the game. He's a guy that's a tough matchup to game plan against because he doesn't have to get deep down the field. He can work that short to intermediate area and pick up first downs in bunches. So I think if they can find ways to get him involved early and often, it bodes well for the Cowboys' chances to win this game. And for the Giants to look at B.J. Goodson, the Mike backer, having to stop the run. If they can stop the run and put Dallas in a situation where they're going to put the football in the air 30 to 35 times, to me, that's a win for this Giants defense. And it's all about that interior defensive line that I talked about earlier, and a guy like B.J. Goodson being a factor versus the running game, because Dallas can still run the football without Ezekiel Elliott. If Goodson can do his part in stopping the run, the Giants can win this game. Ultimately, I like the Cowboys to win this one. This is a football team that still has a little bit of playoff life left. They're trying to catch the Philadelphia Eagles. They're also trying to catch that 6th spot in the playoffs. So Dallas has to continue to win. Right now, they're playing good football on both sides of the ball. I think they take advantage of a Giants team in East Rutherford. If you're a fantasy football player and want some expert advice from a panel of experts, check us out every Sunday morning on the Fantasy Sports Network from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Lineup Lock Live Show. Download the Fantasy Sports Radio app, or you can check us out on YouTube Live by visiting youtube.com/FNTSY Sports Network.
Well, the game of football has taught me so many things, man. Now, think about the huddle we have right now, right? I tell people this all the time. There's a reason why they call it a huddle. You know, people have been huddling all their lives, trying to find ways to enhance each other's lives. The great teams do that all the time. The great teams do that. The better the huddle, the better the team. And so it's simple, man, how if you huddle for all the right reasons, we wouldn't have Ferguson. We wouldn't have some of the challenges that we have in our society. But as we all know, there's always a moment when somebody doesn't belong in the huddle. And yet we have to continue to move on. We got to continue to play. So the game of life, man, is always starting with the huddle. And for me, I'm lucky enough to know that, you know, by the graces of God, man, it's been a nice huddle. It's been a nice huddle. And if I just keep making sure that he's in front of me, I'm gonna be all right.
We've reached the back end of our show, and we have some more games to get into, and we'll start in Los Angeles as the Chargers play host to the Washington Redskins. The Redskins still have the offensive weaponry on the perimeter to be effective. I just worry about their offensive line against one of the best pass rushes in the NFL in the Los Angeles Chargers. It's funny how folks wanted to bury first-year head coach Anthony Lynn earlier in the season, but now you have to consider him as one of the Coach of the Year candidates in the NFL. The Chargers keep it rolling and put a lot of pressure on their AFC rival Kansas City and keep on winning. Speaking of Kansas City, they play host to the Oakland Raiders. The Chiefs' offense showed some life last week, but their defense showed some depth. Can they regroup versus a Raiders team that seems to have gotten off the mat? I think Oakland's offense is doing a good job of spreading the ball around, and it looks as if Marshawn Lynch has gotten into that running back groove that you look for. I like Oakland to go on the road and knock off the Chiefs. I've said it before, the Bears are not that far off. I think they're about a year away from being really good. Right now, their offense is wildly inconsistent, and they face a Bengals team that's coming off of a tough loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bengals defense will continue to keep rookie quarterback Mitch Trubisky guessing the entire game. Although it'll be closer than a lot of folks think, I still like the Bengals in this one. Pivotal game here in the NFC between Detroit and Tampa Bay, and what could essentially be a playoff elimination game. Both teams have flickering hopes of making the playoffs. Well, mainly Detroit, as the Bucs with 8 losses is all but out of it. Which Detroit team will show up this week is the biggest question. Tampa had their opportunities last week against Green Bay, but they let it slip away. Funny enough, this is the type of game that they'll win. So look for a bounce back game for that Bucs offense as they'll close out Detroit. The Packers travel to Cleveland to take on Hugh Jackson's Browns. Green Bay still finds themselves involved in a wild card race, and they can't afford a slip up here in Cleveland. I like the way the Packers can run the football, and that'll be where they have to go against a struggling Browns defense. Rookie quarterback Deshaun Kaiser and wide receiver Josh Gordon should fare a lot better this time around as they continue to build chemistry. Unlike the Madden video game, you can't just plug a player in there and expect to hit the ground running. Now, real football folks know and understand that. However, it won't be enough as they'll fall to the pack. The Colts travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills, and on paper, this should be a Bills victory all the way, but they've been very inconsistent week to week, as evident by their .500 record. I do think the Colts are good for a breakout game. They've been sluggish the last month of the season. Look for Frank Gore to have one of his better games of the year, as they'll rely on him to get the victory. I like the Colts. The 49ers and Texans meet up in Reliant Stadium. San Francisco is in love with Jimmy Garoppolo after he led that offense to 5 field goals en route to a victory over Chicago. Now, the pressure will amp up this week against the Texans, as we'll find out even more about his ability to evade pressure. The Texans had their chances last week against Tennessee, but couldn't get out of their own way. Now, they'll be game, but I like San Francisco in this one. I also like their defense as well. This will be a unit to reckon with in 2018. Will have a playoff atmosphere to it as Carolina and Minnesota meet up. The Vikings have gotten great play from quarterback Case Keenum, along with their running game coming to life. Now, the Panthers' offense has started to get better as well. The biggest key will be whether or not Carolina's offensive front can keep Cam Newton clean enough to find targets downfield. These two teams are very similar in style and approach. I like Carolina in this ball game. All things being equal, side with the team that has a better quarterback, and that's Cam Newton in this situation. The surprising Jets travel into Denver coming off of a great win against Kansas City. Josh McCown has played steady football for them this season, and their defense, especially in this matchup, could be a serious problem moving forward for opposing offenses. The Broncos' main issue is the lack of consistency from the quarterback position, and that'll end up hurting them again against Gang Green. I like the Jets. This is a really good AFC-NFC matchup between the Titans and Cardinals. Tennessee finds new ways to win ball games each week, and we finally got to see Derrick Henry get the ball rolling in a ball game. Once they start to figure out how to get their many weapons involved, they'll be very dangerous come postseason play. The Cardinals lost a critical matchup last week against the Rams. Their offense can't afford to beat themselves like they did against LA. I don't trust Blaine Gabbert on a consistent basis. I think they lose again this week as the Titans will roll. Another huge playoff-style matchup in the NFC between the Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Rams. The Eagles have to be able to win consistently on the outside. That's what teams will try to make them do from here on out. They have the talent. They just have to start executing on a consistent basis. What they also have is a great defense that can apply pressure. That's where you see the Rams quarterback Jared Goff, or where you want to see Jared Goff become better at dealing with. The Rams can spread you out and force you to defend every blade of grass. That's what they'll have to do, or that's what they'll try to do, and neutralize the pressure. When you combine that with Goff's ability to get rid of the football quickly, you have a chance to win. I think they'll keep it close, but I like Philly's defense just a bit more. Look for the Eagles to win. Talk about two teams that mirror one another. The Seahawks take on Jacksonville, and what will most likely be a very physical ball game, to put it lightly. This game simply comes down to which quarterback can you trust, and that's easily Russell Wilson. Everything is equal in my opinion in this matchup, but at the most important position, that's where the Hawks have the advantage and will win the game because of it. Baltimore has just quietly hung around all season long, and they find themselves in the thick of the playoff race with a chance to strengthen that case in Pittsburgh. Again, both defenses will be tough to move the ball against. You have to side with the offense of Pittsburgh to eventually find some rhythm in a game where points will be at a premium. That's too much on one side of the football to keep them shut down the entire game. I like the Steelers. And finally, the Patriots travel to South Beach to battle the Miami Dolphins. One of the biggest turnarounds this season has taken place with the Patriots defense. They are now able to dictate the terms in ball games and are hitting their stride at the right time. That's not what you want to hear if you're the Miami Dolphins that is playing essentially a one-dimensional ball game right now offensively. I like New England here. They'll be able to put their division on ice with the victory in Miami. So that's it for this week's episode of the NFL Kickoff. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. And as always, subscribe to Football Game Plan Podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating.